Darkness, not the soft kind that comes with sleep, but the crushing weight of knowing. The kind that fills lungs and steals breath. The kind that lives in the space between heartbeats when everything has already gone wrong. A voice cuts through, female, steady despite the ragged breathing behind each word. Raven 7 to any station, 480 souls in the valley, hostile force in control, no support, no backup. If you're hearing this transmission, know that we chose to stay, we chose them. The transmission crackles. In the background, something explodes. Close, too close, the voice doesn't flinch. Tell them we were here. Tell them we held the line. Static swallows the rest. Then nothing. Just the dead air of a frequency no one is listening to anymore. White text burns into the black, 72 hours earlier. The Colorado morning came hard and bright, the way it always does at 8,000 feet. Lieutenant Derek Hayes stood in front of the operations building at Fort Blackstone Training Complex, his duffel at his feet, and tried not to look as nervous as he felt. The base sprawled across 1,800 square kilometers of mountain and high desert, a fortress of stone and steel carved into terrain that didn't want to be tamed. He'd been here 3 hours and already felt lost. The side door opened. A woman emerged, mid-30s maybe, 5'7" in boots, dark hair pulled back so tight it might have hurt. She wore a flight suit that had seen better days and carried herself like someone who'd forgotten how to waste movement. Her eyes swept over him once, clinical, measuring, finding him wanting. "Lieutenant Hayes reporting, ma'am." She stopped 2 paces away, close enough to make him aware of his posture, far enough to establish distance. "You're late." Hayes checked his watch, 07:58. His report time was 0800. "By 2 minutes, ma'am. Weather delay in Denver caused a cascade at the rental counter. I drove as fast as." 2 minutes equals 2 body bags in the field, Lieutenant. You're grounded today. Watch and learn. She moved past him toward the flight line. Hayes grabbed his duffel and followed, scrambling to keep pace. She didn't look back, didn't slow down. The morning sun caught the name tape on her chest. Stone, A. Captain Alexis Stone, his new commanding officer. The woman they called the Ice Queen in every unofficial channel he'd monitored before arriving. The one who supposedly hadn't smiled in 8 years. The one whose last co-pilot had requested transfer after 6 months, citing reasons that were redacted in the personnel file. Hayes had thought that last part was a red flag. Now, jogging behind her, he was certain of it. They reached the flight line. 5 helicopters sat in perfect formation. A 60 Black Hawks, medical transport configuration. Raven Squadron. Stone stopped at the second bird, running her hand along the fuselage like a rider checking a horse before a long journey. "You know the mission profile." Her voice carried over the whine of ground crew prepping the first bird. "Operation Sentinel Shield, ma'am. 6-week training cycle for 480 cadets from 5 service branches. Final evaluation week. We provide overwatch and medical evacuation support." "Good, you read the brief." She opened the pilot's door, began her pre-flight check. "Now forget everything you think you know about flying medevac in flat terrain. This is mountain work. Wind shear that'll flip you inverted. Updrafts that'll slam you into rock faces. Altitude that makes your bird sluggish when you need speed the most. And 1 second of hesitation will kill everyone depending on you." Hayes swallowed. "Yes, ma'am." Stone looked at him then, really looked. Her eyes were gray, the color of storm clouds that meant business. Something lived behind them, something old and tired and sharp as broken glass. "What did your last co tell you about me?" The question landed like a trap. Hayes knew better than to lie. "He said you were the best pilot he'd ever seen, ma'am, and that I should follow your lead without question. What didn't he tell you? Hayes hesitated. Stone's expression didn't change, but he felt the weight of expectation pressing down. That you lost your entire unit 8 years ago. That you transferred from special operations to training command. That no one knows what happened because the mission is still classified. Stone's jaw tightened, just a fraction, just enough. Your last co should learn to keep his mouth shut. She climbed into the cockpit. Get in the back, stay quiet. If I need you, I'll tell you. Hayes obeyed. The crew chief, a staff sergeant with 20 years in his eyes and permanent grease under his nails, gave him a look that said, "Welcome to hell, kid." Hayes strapped in. Stone's hands moved across the controls. Smooth, practiced. No wasted motion. The turbine spooled up, that building whine that Hayes had loved since the first time he'd ever sat in a cockpit. They lifted off. The base fell away beneath them. Stone banked hard right, dropping into a valley that seemed to open its mouth just to swallow them whole. The mountains closed in on both sides. Rock faces so near Hayes could count the layers of sediment. Stone flew like she was dancing with gravity, using the terrain instead of fighting it. Raven 7 to tower, southbound through Devil's Corridor. Estimated time to checkpoint Alpha 12 minutes. The radio crackled back. Copy, Raven 7, cadet group is standing by. Below, Hayes could see them, 60 young faces looking up. Kids, really. 18, 19, 20 years old. Wearing the uniform but still carrying that softness around the edges that combat burns away. They'd come here to learn how to survive. Stone was here to teach them that survival has a price. She brought the bird in low, impossibly low. The rotor wash kicked up dust and sent hats flying. She held position 3 feet off the ground, steady as a rock despite wind that should have made it impossible. A perfect hover. Hayes watched the instruments. 17-knot crosswind, gusting to 23. At this altitude with this load, it should have been shaking them apart. Stone held it like she'd nailed the helicopter to the sky. The crew chief kicked out supply crates, medical gear, water, emergency rations, training materials. It took 90 seconds. Stone never wavered. When the last crate hit dirt, she pulled pitch and climbed out in a spiral that used the mountain face to block the wind. Textbook. No, better than textbook. Instinctive. A voice came over the training frequency. Young, male, awed. How the hell did she do that? Another voice, older, probably an instructor on the ground. That's why she's still alive, son. Stone's expression didn't change. She flew them back to base in silence. Landed with the kind of precision that looked effortless but required absolute mastery. Shut down the bird. Climbed out. Hayes followed her to the operations building. Inside, other instructors were gathering for the morning brief. They nodded at Stone but didn't approach. Respect mixed with something else. Distance. Like she existed in a space they couldn't enter even if they wanted to. The briefing was standard. Weather outlook, training schedule, status updates on cadet performance. Stone sat in the back, arms crossed, face neutral. Hayes noticed the other pilots kept their distance. Not fear, something quieter. Reverence, maybe. Or the kind of careful respect you give to things that might break if touched. After the brief, Hayes caught up to her outside. "Ma'am, I have a question." Stone stopped, didn't turn around, make it quick. "Why did you request a new co-pilot? The file says Lieutenant Morgan transferred out voluntarily." Now she turned. The mountain sun was brutal behind her, turning her into a silhouette with edges sharp enough to cut. Morgan was competent, but competence isn't enough out here. You know what the survival rate is for helicopter crews in mountain rescue operations gone wrong? Hayes shook his head. 42%. That number goes up to 78 if your pilot has been in combat. It goes up to 96 if your pilot has been in combat and made the hard calls that keep people alive even when the mission says they should die. She stepped closer. I don't need competent, Lieutenant. I need someone who won't hesitate when I give an order. Can you do that? Hayes met her eyes, saw something there he recognized, the look of someone who'd been left behind and had to claw their way home alone. Yes, ma'am. We'll see. She walked away. Hayes stood there as the sun climbed higher and shadows shortened. Somewhere in the mountains, 480 cadets were learning to be soldiers. But here, on this flight line, Derek Hayes was learning something else. His new captain wasn't training him to fly. She was training him to survive what came after. Night fell like a curtain, the kind of dark that only exists far from cities, where stars outnumber streetlights by millions to one. Hayes sat in the junior officers' mess, picking at a meal he wasn't hungry for. Around him, other lieutenants talked and laughed. The easy camaraderie of people who hadn't seen enough yet to know better. He excused himself early, walked the perimeter. Fort Blackstone at night was a different animal. The training ranges fell silent. Guard towers kept their spotlights sweeping. In the distance, generators hummed their steady song. Hayes found himself near the flight line. The helicopters sat in their revetments, dark shapes against darker sky. One had a light on inside. Raven 7, Stone's bird. He approached slowly. Through the cockpit glass he could see her, sitting in the pilot's seat, not doing pre-flight checks, not reviewing manuals, just sitting, staring straight ahead at something only she could see. On the console in front of her, a photograph. Hayes couldn't make out details, but he saw enough. A group of people in desert gear, maybe a dozen. Stone's hand rested on the edge of it, not holding, just touching, like making sure it was still real. Hayes backed away before she noticed him, walked to his quarters, lay in the dark and listened to the mountain wind test the windows. He'd read the official file 3 times. Captain Alexis Stone, age 34, 11 years in service, 8 with the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, Night Stalkers, the best of the best, then a classified mission, a deployment that lasted 9 months, a mission failure that killed 10 people. And somehow Stone came home. The file said survivor's guilt. The file said PTSD. The file said she'd been cleared for duty after 18 months of evaluation and therapy, transferred to training command, given a second chance at a career that should have ended. But the file didn't say why she still sat in that cockpit at night, touching photographs of ghosts. Hayes closed his eyes. Tomorrow, Operation Sentinel Shield would enter its final week. 480 cadets spread across 900 square kilometers of terrain designed to break them. Stone would fly over watch. Hayes would watch her work. And maybe, if he was lucky, he'd learn something worth knowing. He didn't know that tomorrow. Everything they thought they understood about duty and sacrifice would burn down around them. He didn't know that by this time tomorrow night, those 480 cadets would be hostages. And Captain Alexis Stone would have to choose between saving them or stopping the man who'd once taught her how to survive. The alarm didn't sound. That was the first wrong thing. At 02:47, Hayes woke without knowing why. Training, maybe. Instinct. The particular silence that comes when something is holding its breath before it strikes. He was out of bed and pulling on boots when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered anyway. Stone's voice, clipped, controlled. Hayes, Raven 7, now don't use the radio. The line went dead. Hayes grabbed his flight suit and ran. The base was dark, too dark. The perimeter lights that should have been blazing were dim, not off but reduced, like someone had dialed them down just enough to make shadows deeper without triggering alerts. He reached the flight line. Stone was already there, crouched behind a equipment shed. She wore full tactical gear under her flight suit. That was wrong, too. Instructors didn't gear up like that, not for training ops. "Ma'am, what?" She held up a hand, pointed. Hayes followed her finger. 6 figures moving across the tarmac. Low, fast, professional. They wore black tactical gear with no insignia, night vision mounted, weapons held ready. They moved like water flowing from cover to cover in perfect coordination. Military or former military. The kind of movement you can't fake. "Who are they?" Hayes kept his voice to a whisper. "Don't know yet, but they just took out 3 guard posts without triggering an alarm." Stone's eyes never left the figures. "That's not luck, that's inside knowledge." One of the figures stopped, made a hand signal. The others spread out in a pattern Hayes recognized. JSOC Close Target Reconnaissance Formation. Special Operations Standard. He'd seen it in training videos. These weren't amateurs. These were operators. They moved towards Sector 7, the Armory Complex, where Fort Blackstone kept the heavy weapons used for advanced training, and according to rumors Hayes had heard but never confirmed, where classified equipment was sometimes stored in transit between bases. Stone moved, fast and silent. Hayes followed, heart hammering. They paralleled the group using the helicopters and support vehicles for cover. The intruders reached the armory's outer fence. One produced a device that looked like an oversized phone, held it against the electronic lock. 10 seconds. The light went green. The gate opened without a sound. "They're not here for the cadets." Stone's voice was barely breath. "They're here for cargo." "What cargo?" "Something worth 6 operators and an infiltration this clean." She pulled her sidearm. Standard issue Beretta M9, not much against 6 trained killers with automatic weapons. "I'm going closer. You get to the command post. Wake the duty officer. Tell him we have an incursion. Sector 7. Priority Alpha." Hayes grabbed her arm. "Ma'am, you can't go in there alone." Stone looked at him. In the dim light, her eyes were black. "I won't be alone. I'll be very, very quiet." She moved before he could argue, disappeared into shadows like she'd been made of them. Hayes stood frozen for a heartbeat, then another. His training said follow orders. His gut said Stone was walking into a kill zone with a pistol and 15 rounds. He compromised, stayed put, watched. If things went bad, he could at least provide backup, or witness, or something other than abandoning his code to die alone. Stone reached the armory fence, slipped through the open gate. The 6 operators had already moved inside the main building. Through the windows, Hayes could see flashlights sweeping interior spaces. They were searching, room by room, professional, thorough. Stone pressed against the wall, moved along it like a shadow with purpose. Hayes lost sight of her as she rounded the corner. His heart felt like it was trying to break through his ribs. Minutes stretched. Nothing, just wind and the distant hum of generators. Hayes was about to move when light spilled from a side door. 4 figures emerged carrying a case between them. Metallic, rectangular, about the size of a footlocker, heavy enough that it took 2 men on each end. They moved toward a section of the complex Hayes didn't recognize. Old maintenance access, a loading area that should have been sealed off. But the gate was open, and beyond it, barely visible in the darkness, Hayes saw the outline of a vehicle, military pattern, engine running quiet. The last 2 operators emerged from the building. One was clearly in charge, taller than the others, moved with authority. He made a hand signal. The group reformed, started moving toward the vehicle. That's when Stone stepped out of the shadows. She wasn't pointing her weapon. She just stood there, 30 feet from them, visible in the spill of light from the doorway. 1 woman, 1 pistol, 6 trained killers. The lead operator stopped, held up a fist. His team froze. For 3 seconds nobody moved. The tableau held. Stone and the operator facing each other across 30 feet of tarmac. Hayes couldn't see her face. Couldn't see the operator's face behind the balaclava, but something passed between them. Recognition, or memory, or the weight of shared history neither had forgotten. The operator reached up, pulled off his balaclava. Even from this distance, Hayes could see Stone's body language change. Stiffening. Not fear, something else. Something that looked like seeing a ghost and realizing it never left. The operator spoke. His voice carried in the night air. Deep, calm, familiar in a way that made Stone's hand twitch toward her weapon and then stop. "Hello, Phantom, long time." Stone didn't respond, didn't move. The operator tilted his head slightly. "I'd hoped you weren't here, made it easier. But nothing's easy with you, is it?" "Marcus," Stone's voice flat dead, "you're supposed to be in Prague." "Plans change." The operator, Marcus, gestured to his team. They remained in position but relaxed slightly. "I don't suppose you'll let us leave quietly." "You know I can't do that." "Can't or won't." Marcus took a step forward. His team tensed. "That's always been your problem. Never could tell the difference between orders and choices. And you never could tell the difference between loyalty and suicide." Stone's hand was on her weapon now, not drawing, just ready. "What's in the case, Marcus?" "Above your clearance level, Captain. Way above." "Try me." Marcus smiled, not friendly, not cruel, just tired. "Same old Phantom, still think you can save everyone. How'd that work out last time?" Stone flinched, barely, just a fraction, but Hayes saw it. Saw the wound those words opened, old and deep and still bleeding. "Last time you left me behind to die," Stone said. "Last time you chose the mission over the team. Last time 10 people died because you wouldn't deviate from orders even when the intel was wrong. Last time I followed my commander's directives. Last time I prioritized mission success. Last time I did my job." Marcus's voice hardened. "And you couldn't handle it, so you told them I was wrong, testified at the inquiry, ended my career, sent me into the cold with a dishonorable discharge and a pension that wouldn't feed a dog. You're not a victim, Marcus. You're a war criminal they couldn't prove." "Careful, Captain. Those are heavy words for someone who's standing alone against 6 professionals with automatic weapons and no backup coming." Hayes realized Marcus was right. The base was still dark, still silent. No alarms, no response force. Either Stone's call hadn't gotten through or something was jamming communications. They were alone. Stone must have realized it too, but she didn't back down, didn't lower her weapon, just stood there like she was carved from the same stone as the mountains around them. "You won't shoot me," Stone said. "You need clean exit. Bodies mean investigations. Investigations mean you don't get far with your prize." Marcus considered, then nodded. "Smart, still thinking tactically. I appreciate that, so here's what happens. You step aside, we leave. No one gets hurt. Come morning, you report a theft. Security reviews footage that's been corrupted. Investigation goes nowhere. Everyone lives. And the case is worth more than your life, my life, and everyone on this base combined. Walk away, Phantom. For once in your life, choose to walk away." Stone's finger moved to her trigger. Hayes felt his stomach drop. This was going to go bad. 6 trained operators, 1 captain with a pistol. The math was brutal. Then Stone lowered her weapon. "Marcus, I need to know, is this about the money, or is this about Fallujah?" Marcus's expression changed, softened, just a breath, just enough for Hayes to see the man beneath the operator. "Fallujah was 8 years ago. I've moved on." You haven't moved on. You're standing in front of me with 5 contractors and a stolen DOD case. This is about revenge. This is about proving we were wrong and you were right. This is about making them see what they did to you. Maybe it is. Marcus's team started moving again, backing toward the vehicle with the case. Or maybe I just need the payday. Does it matter? It matters if 480 cadets are about to become collateral damage. Marcus stopped, his team stopped, the night held its breath. What cadets? Operation Sentinel Shield. Final week. 480 kids spread across 900 clicks of training range. If you blow this armory, if you trip the automated response protocols, the entire base goes into lockdown. Those kids are trapped out there with no evac, no support, no supplies beyond what they're carrying. In this terrain, in this weather, half of them die in 36 hours. Marcus stared at her. You're bluffing. Call the TOC. Check the operation board. I'm not bluffing. For 10 seconds, Marcus didn't move. Then he pulled a radio, spoke quietly into it. Hayes couldn't hear the response, but he saw Marcus's jaw tighten. Well played, Captain. Using kids as shields, I'm impressed. I'm not using them as anything. I'm telling you the cost of your exit strategy. You want to leave clean? Fine. But you don't get to leave with that case and without consequences. Then what do you suggest? Stone took a breath, made a decision. You take the case. You disappear. But you give me 36 hours before you move it off base. 36 hours to evacuate the cadets. 36 hours to get them clear. Then you vanish and I report the theft at 0700 tomorrow. You'll have a 6-hour head start before anyone knows what happened. Marcus laughed, actually laughed. You want me to trust you'll keep your word, after what happened in Fallujah, after you destroyed my career with your testimony. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to do the math. You leave now, alarms trigger in 2 minutes when the armory door times out. Lockdown protocols engage. Your vehicle gets stopped at the gate by automated barriers. You're trapped on base with 400 military police and no exit. Or you wait 36 hours, use the chaos of a training operation ending early, and drive out in broad daylight with the rest of the support convoy. Your choice. Hayes watched Marcus calculate, saw the operator's mind working through options, contingencies, risk versus reward. This was a professional thinking professionally, and Stone knew it. She was speaking his language. Finally, Marcus nodded. 36 hours. But if you deviate, if you try to stop me, if you play hero again like you did in Fallujah, then those 480 kids become a different kind of leverage. Understood. Understood. And Phantom, for old time's sake, I'm sorry it has to be like this. You were a good soldier once, before you decided conscience mattered more than orders. And you were a good man once, before you decided orders mattered more than conscience. Marcus turned away. His team moved toward the vehicle. The case went in first. Then the operators, smooth and silent. The vehicle's engine purred to life. It rolled toward the perimeter access road, lights off, disappearing into the pre-dawn darkness. Stone stood there, alone, her weapon still in hand but lowered. Hayes watched her shoulders drop, just an inch, just enough to show the weight she'd been carrying. He moved out of cover, approached carefully. Stone didn't turn. Ma'am, I should report this. I should wake the entire base and do what, Lieutenant? Tell them we got infiltrated by professionals who are already gone. Tell them we lost cargo we're not supposed to know exists. Tell them I negotiated with a domestic enemy without authorization. Stone holstered her sidearm. You do that, and 36 hours from now, 480 cadets are still trapped on range when the lockdown hits. At least this way, we have time. Time to do what? Stone looked at him. Her eyes were gray steel in the pre-dawn light. Time to get them out. Time to evacuate before Marcus realizes I'm not going to let him keep that case. Time to save lives instead of following protocols that will get everyone killed. Hayes felt something cold slide down his spine. "Ma'am, you're planning to go after him." "I'm planning to do my job, protect the cadets, stop a threat, execute the mission." She started walking toward Raven 7. "Get the bird ready. We fly in 30 minutes. Rouse the other instructors. Tell them we're moving up the extraction timeline. Training ends early. Everyone comes home today." "Captain Stone, if you go after Marcus with his team in that case, you're committing career suicide. Court-martial at minimum." Stone stopped, turned. "Lieutenant Hayes, 8 years ago I watched 10 people die because I followed orders instead of doing what was right. I testified against my commanding officer because he made me choose between conscience and duty. That testimony ended his career. It should have ended mine. But they kept me because someone decided I was more valuable training the next generation than I was rotting in prison for insubordination." She stepped closer. Hayes could smell gunpowder and sweat, and something that might have been fear buried so deep it had fossilized. "I've spent 8 years teaching kids how to fly and fight and survive. Every single one of them went into the world with skills I gave them. Some came home, some didn't. Every one that didn't I remember, every face, every name, every funeral." Her voice dropped to something raw. 480 cadets are out there right now. They trust us. They trust me. If Marcus gets away with that case, if I let him go to save my career or my conscience or my life, then every kid who died believing I taught them right was wrong. And I can't live with that." Hayes swallowed, nodded. "So what do you need from me?" "I need you to fly the bird. I need you to follow orders without hesitation. And I need you to understand that when this is over, you might be the only one who comes home with a career intact. Can you do that?" Derek Hayes looked at Captain Alexis Stone, saw the ghost of the soldier she'd been, saw the weight of the lives she carried, saw someone who'd made peace with dying if it meant someone else got to live. He thought about his last commanding officer's warning: "Best pilot you'll ever fly with. Follow her lead without question." "Yes, ma'am." Stone's expression didn't change, but something behind her eyes shifted. Respect maybe, or recognition. One soldier seeing another. "Good, then let's go get our kids back." They moved toward Raven 7 as the first hint of dawn touched the eastern peaks. The mountains watched in silence. The stars faded, and 480 cadets slept in their bivouacs, dreaming of graduation and families and futures they thought were guaranteed. None of them knew that in less than 3 hours, their training exercise would become a hostage situation. None of them knew that Captain Alexis Stone had just chosen saving them over every regulation, every order, every piece of protocol designed to keep soldiers safe. And none of them knew that the man who'd infiltrated their base was someone Stone had once called friend, mentor, and the reason 10 people died in a desert 8 years ago. The sun climbed over the mountains. Light spilled across Fort Blackstone. Guard shifts changed. Breakfast bells rang. The base woke to another day. But Captain Stone was already airborne, already hunting, already committed to a choice that would either save 480 lives or end her career in flames. She'd made that choice once before, in Fallujah, when she'd chosen to tell the truth instead of protect her commander. It cost Marcus Holt everything. Now he was back, and the debt was coming due. High above the Colorado wilderness, Raven 7 banked into the rising sun. Inside, Stone's hands were steady on the controls. Her eyes scanned the horizon. Her mind calculated angles and distances and the odds of pulling off the impossible. Lieutenant Hayes sat in the co-pilot's seat, silent, ready, trusting her lead even though he barely knew her, even though following her might destroy him too. The radio crackled. Raven 7, this is Tower. Confirm early extraction protocol. We show 480 cadets across 9 checkpoints. Estimated collection time 7 hours. Advise. Stone keyed the mic. Her voice was ice, professional, betraying nothing of the war she just declared. Tower Raven 7. Confirmed. Beginning collection at Checkpoint Alpha. Will advise when complete. Copy Raven 7. Weather looks clear, fly safe. Will do. She clicked off. Hayes watched her, waiting for orders, waiting for the truth. Ma'am, what's really in that case? Stone didn't answer immediately, just flew, just breathed. When she finally spoke, her voice carried something Hayes hadn't heard before: fear. I don't know, Lieutenant, but Marcus wouldn't risk this for money, which means whatever's in there is worth more than dollars, and anything worth that much is worth killing for. Do you think he'll really wait 36 hours? No, Stone adjusted their course. Marcus was lying. He'll move as soon as he thinks it's safe, which gives us maybe 3 hours before he realizes I'm not evacuating the cadets. I'm hunting him. Hayes felt his stomach twist. What happens then? Then those 480 kids stop being obstacles and start being leverage. Marcus knows me, knows how I think, knows I'll choose them over the mission every time. He'll use that. So what's the play? Stone's jaw tightened. We find him first. We stop him before he can adapt, and we get that case back before anyone realizes it was gone. Ma'am, that's impossible. Captain Alexis Stone smiled then, the first time Hayes had seen it. Thin, sharp, the smile of someone who'd survived impossible before and knew the price. Impossible is just a word people use before they run out of options, Lieutenant. I ran out of options 8 years ago. I've been living on borrowed time ever since. She pushed the throttle forward. Raven 7 accelerated. Below them, the Colorado wilderness opened up like a wound. Mountains and valleys and 480 cadets who had no idea their morning was about to become a nightmare. And somewhere in those mountains, Marcus Holt was moving, planning, preparing to turn a simple theft into something that would test every lesson Stone had learned about sacrifice and duty and the terrible mathematics of who lives and who dies. The sun climbed higher, the day began, and Captain Alexis Stone flew toward a reckoning 8 years in the making. She'd told the truth once and destroyed a man. Now that man was back. And the only way to save 480 lives was to face him again. To choose again. To pay the price she'd been avoiding since the day she walked out of Fallujah alive, while 10 others didn't. The first checkpoint came into view at 08:15. Checkpoint Alpha. 60 cadets sprawled across a clearing in the high desert, their gear spread out for morning inspection. They looked up as Raven 7 thundered overhead. Young faces, tired from a week of sleeping on rock and eating MREs, but still bright with that particular kind of pride that comes from knowing you're almost done, almost graduated, almost home. Stone brought the bird down fast. Hayes gripped his harness as the ground rushed up. She flared at the last second, settling into a hover 3 feet off the deck. Textbook. Perfect. The kind of flying that looked easy until you tried it yourself and realized how many ways it could kill you. The crew chief opened the side door. Dust and noise flooded in. Below, an instructor was waving cadets back, clearing the landing zone. Stone sat down with a bump that barely registered. Hayes started his shutdown checklist, but Stone's hand stopped him. Keep it running, we're not staying. Hayes looked at her. She was scanning the tree line, eyes moving, hunting, looking for something that wasn't there yet but would be soon. Ma'am, protocol says we confirm cadet count, verify no injuries, coordinate with ground instructor before. Protocol is about to get 480 kids killed. She unstrapped, moved to the door. I need 5 minutes. Watch the radio. If Marcus calls, you tell him I'm doing exactly what I promised, evacuating cadets, nothing more. She dropped out before Hayes could respond, landed in a crouch that absorbed the impact, moved toward the instructor, a grizzled master sergeant with 30 years of mountain warfare written into his posture. They talked. Hayes couldn't hear over the turbine whine, but he saw the master sergeant's expression change. Confusion, then concern, then the hard set of someone who'd just been told something he didn't want to believe but couldn't ignore. Stone pulled out a map, pointed. The master sergeant nodded, pulled his own radio, started barking orders Hayes couldn't hear. The cadets scrambled to pack, fast, efficient. The chaos of a training exercise suddenly becoming real in a way none of them had expected. Stone jogged back, climbed in, strapped in, pulled pitch before Hayes had finished his pre-takeoff checks. What did you tell him? The truth, that we're pulling everyone off range. Training exercise terminated early due to security concerns. They're to rally at Checkpoint Bravo, wait for transport. And he believed you. Master Sergeant Chen has been running ranges for 20 years. He knows when officers are lying and when they're scared. I gave him scared. He'll move his people. They climbed, banked south toward Checkpoint Bravo. Below, the Colorado wilderness spread out like a topographic map come to life. Ridges and valleys, stone and timber, water running cold and fast through channels carved over millennia. Beautiful, deadly. The kind of terrain that swallowed helicopters and spit out wreckage. Hayes checked his watch. 0832, almost an hour since the infiltration, since Marcus and his team vanished with whatever was in that case. The math was simple and brutal. If Marcus was smart, he was already moving, setting up his exit, preparing to turn Stone's promise into a trap. Ma'am, we need to talk about the endgame here. Stone didn't look at him, just flew. Go ahead. Even if we evacuate all 480 cadets, even if we get them clear before Marcus makes his move, we still have a problem. That case, whatever's in it, you can't let him take it off base, which means at some point you're going to have to stop him. And when you do, he'll know you lied. He'll know you never intended to keep your word. I know. So what's the play? The play is we save the cadets first. Everything else is secondary. Hayes shook his head. With respect, ma'am, that's not a plan, that's a prayer. Marcus isn't stupid. He's going to figure out what you're doing, and when he does... Stone cut him off. When he does, Lieutenant, we'll adapt. But right now, our priority is getting kids off that range before they become leverage. You got a better idea, I'm listening. Hayes didn't have a better idea. He had the same sick feeling he'd had during flight school when an instructor demonstrated an auto-rotation and casually mentioned that the survival rate for actual engine failures was 62%. The feeling of being in a machine that could kill you if you made one wrong choice, and knowing that sometimes there were no right choices, just less wrong ones. They hit Checkpoint Bravo at 0900. Same drill. Stone down, orders given, cadets scrambling. Then Checkpoint Charlie, Delta, Echo. Each time the pattern repeated. Each time Hayes watched Stone move with that particular economy of motion that separated veterans from everyone else. No wasted words, no hesitation, just clarity of purpose that cut through confusion like a blade. By 10:30, they'd touched down at 7 checkpoints. 420 cadets accounted for, 60 still out at the final 2 locations. Checkpoint Foxtrot and Golf, the furthest points. the ones deepest in the terrain where radio coverage got spotty and help took longest to arrive. Stone was refueling at the forward operating pad when Hayes's radio crackled. Not the standard frequency, the encrypted channel, the one Marcus had used earlier. Hayes keyed it, "Go ahead." Marcus's voice, calm, professional, terrifying in its normalcy, put Stone on. "She's outside the bird." "Then go get her, now." Hayes climbed out, found Stone conferring with a fuel tech about load calculations. He caught her eye, pointed to his radio, mouthed the name, Marcus. Stone's jaw tightened. She walked to Raven 7, climbed in, took Hayes's headset. "I'm here." "You've been busy, Phantom. 7 checkpoints in 90 minutes. Impressive. Almost like you're trying to evacuate the entire training range before I realize what you're doing." "I told you I'd get the cadets clear. That's what I'm doing." "You told me you'd report the theft at 0700. Give me a head start. But it's 10:33 and Fort Blackstone still shows normal operations. No alarms, no lockdown, no investigation." A pause. "You're not planning to report anything, are you?" Stone's knuckles went white on the headset. "Marcus, listen to me." "No, you listen. I gave you a chance to do this clean. Gave you 36 hours to choose between duty and those kids. But you couldn't help yourself. Same as Fallujah, same as always. You think you can save everyone. You think there's a magic solution where nobody dies and everyone goes home happy. I'm getting the cadets off range. That was the deal. What you do after that is your business. The deal was you'd look the other way. The deal was you'd let me disappear, but you're not looking the other way. You're hunting me. I can feel it." Marcus's voice dropped. "How many cadets are left?" Stone didn't answer. 60 checkpoints Foxtrot and Golf. I'm looking at the operations map right now. Took it off a duty officer who really should have been more careful with his access codes. Static crackled. "Here's the new deal, Phantom. You land Raven 7. You walk away from those last 60 kids. You let them finish their exercise like nothing's wrong. And I leave, clean, quiet. No one gets hurt. And if I refuse, then I stop running and start hunting. 60 kids spread across 2 checkpoints makes for easy targets. My team is already in position. One radio call and they start teaching those cadets what a real combat scenario looks like. Your choice. Their lives or your conscience. Same as Fallujah. Same as it's always been." The transmission cut. Stone sat there, headset in her hand, face carved from stone that matched her name. Hayes waited, knowing better than to speak, knowing that whatever happened next would define everything. Finally Stone spoke, voice quiet, deadly calm. "Hayes, what's your read on Marcus? Knowing what you know, seeing what you've seen, is he bluffing?" Hayes thought about the 6 operators moving with military precision, thought about the way Marcus had handled that negotiation. Professional, detached, the voice of someone who'd made peace with necessary evils a long time ago. "No, ma'am, he's not bluffing." Stone nodded, like she'd expected that answer but had to hear it anyway. She pulled out her tablet, brought up the base map, stared at the 2 remaining checkpoints. 60 cadets, 60 lives, all depending on what she did in the next 10 seconds. "What if we go in fast?" Hayes offered. "Hit both checkpoints, extract before Marcus can react." His team is already in position. He said so, which means they're watching, waiting. The second we touch down, they know. And 60 kids with training rifles against 5 contractors with automatic weapons. She shook her head. "Math doesn't work. So we call for backup, alert the base, send in the QRF. And Marcus detonates whatever contingency he set up, or kills cadets and disappears in the chaos, or both." Stone's finger traced the map. No, he's given us a choice. Save 60 by sacrificing duty, or sacrifice 60 for duty. Classic no-win scenario. There's always a third option. Not this time. Stone closed the tablet. Marcus isn't giving us a third option. He's forcing me to choose again, like Fallujah. Except this time the people who die won't be my team. They'll be kids who trusted me to keep them safe. Hayes watched her, saw something he hadn't seen before. Not fear, not doubt, something older, something that looked like recognition. Like she was seeing a pattern she'd seen before and knowing exactly how it ended. Ma'am, 8 years ago, what really happened in Fallujah? Stone looked at him, those gray eyes holding nothing back. You want the official version or the truth? Truth. Official version. Our unit infiltrated an insurgent stronghold to retrieve classified intel. Mission went sideways, bad intel, wrong location. 10 KIA. Marcus Holt court-martialed for operational negligence. I testified against him. He was dishonorably discharged. And the truth? Stone took a breath. The truth is we were sent into Fallujah to recover something that was never there. Intel was fabricated. The whole mission was a cover for something else. Something classified so far above our clearance we didn't even know we were being used. When we realized it, when Marcus figured out we'd been sent to die as a distraction, he tried to pull us out. But I wouldn't leave without confirming the intel was false. I insisted we complete the mission. She paused, memory pulling her back 8 years. Marcus gave the withdrawal order. I countermanded it, ranked the same, but I had position authority as tactical lead, split the team. Half went with Marcus, half stayed with me. Marcus's half made it out. Mine didn't. 10 people died because I wouldn't trust his instinct, because I followed orders instead of survival. And when they asked what happened, Marcus took the fall, said he ordered the withdrawal too late, said it was his fault. Hayes felt something shift in his understanding. He lied for you. He protected me, probably thought I'd learned my lesson. That next time I'd choose survival over orders. Stone's voice went flat. So when they put him in front of the board, I had a choice. I could lie, say he was right, save his career, or I could tell the truth, say he abandoned the mission, abandoned my half of the team, and in doing so I could save myself by sacrificing him. And you chose truth. I chose to follow regulations. I told the inquiry exactly what happened, that Marcus ordered withdrawal, that I countermanded, that he left anyway. The board determined he'd abandoned personnel under fire, dishonorable discharge, end of career. She met Hayes's eyes. I destroyed him to save myself, and I've been living with that choice for 8 years. The confession hung in the air. Hayes understood now. Understood why Stone was the Ice Queen, why she never smiled, why she sat in cockpits at night touching photos of ghosts. She'd made a choice 8 years ago, the wrong choice, and 10 people died, and Marcus Holt paid the price for her mistake while she got to keep flying. Ma'am, if that's true, why did Marcus protect you? Why take the fall? Because he believed in something I didn't. He believed that loyalty mattered more than truth, that protecting your people mattered more than following regulations. And when I betrayed that belief, when I chose regulations over loyalty, I proved him wrong, broke something in him he can't get back. So now he's making you choose again. Yes, except this time, 60 cadets die if I choose wrong, and Marcus gets to watch me live with it, again. Hayes processed that, the weight of it, the elegant cruelty. Marcus wasn't here for revenge. He was here for something worse. Proof. Proof that the woman who destroyed his career by choosing regulations over loyalty would do it again, would sacrifice lives to maintain order, would be exactly what he always feared she was, a soldier who valued rules more than people. What are you going to do? Stone started the engines, turbines winding up to that familiar whine. I'm going to show Marcus he was wrong about me, Then, and now. She lifted off before Hayes could ask what that meant, climbed fast, banked hard east, not toward checkpoints Foxtrot or Golf, toward something else. Hayes pulled up the map on his own display, tried to figure out where they were going. Then he saw it. Sector 7, the armory, where Marcus had stolen the case. "Ma'am, what are we doing?" "We're going to have a conversation." Stone pushed the throttle forward. Raven 7 accelerated. "Marcus wants me to choose between duty and lives. Fine, I'll choose. But first I need to know what I'm choosing between. What's in that case? What's worth 60 kids dying for?" "He's not going to tell you." "He will if I give him something he wants more." "Which is?" Stone smiled. That thin, dangerous smile Hayes had seen once before. "Me." They hit the armory at 1100 hours. Stone brought them in low and fast, the kind of approach that would make most pilots nervous but that she flew like breathing. She set down in the same clearing Marcus's team had used, engines still running, rotors kicking up dust and small stones. Stone unstrapped, grabbed a tactical vest from the back, started loading magazines. "Ma'am, this is insane. You're walking into an ambush." "I'm walking into a negotiation. Marcus won't kill me. Not yet. Not until he's proven his point." "What point?" "That I'll always choose wrong. That I'll always sacrifice the right thing for the easy thing. That 8 years later I'm still the same soldier who let 10 people die rather than break regulations." She chambered around. "But he's wrong, and I'm going to prove it." Stone climbed out, walked toward the armory. No cover, no backup, just walking across open ground like she was reporting for duty. Hayes watched through the windscreen, every instinct screaming at him to stop her, every regulation saying he should radio for help, every piece of training telling him this was wrong. But Stone had taught him something in the last 2 days. Sometimes following regulations gets people killed. Sometimes the only way to do the right thing is to do the wrong thing first. Hayes grabbed the co-pilot's rifle, climbed out, followed his captain into whatever nightmare she was walking toward. The armory door hung open, bent inward where Marcus's team had forced entry. Inside, darkness and the smell of gun oil and concrete. Stone moved in, smooth, weapon up, checking corners. Hayes followed, trying to remember close quarters training from a course he'd taken 3 years ago and barely passed. They cleared the first room. Second, third, all empty, equipment undisturbed. No sign of Marcus or his team, but Stone wasn't looking at the equipment. She was looking at the floor, following something Hayes couldn't see. Boot prints still fresh. She knelt, touched the concrete. "Marcus wants me to find him. He's leaving a trail." "That's a trap." "Yes, it is." Stone stood, moved deeper into the complex. "But it's a trap I need to walk into, because the only way to save those 60 cadets is to give Marcus what he really wants, confirmation that I haven't changed, that I'm still the soldier who chose orders over people in Fallujah. And if you can't convince him, then I'll have to stop him permanently." They reached a stairwell, descending. Stone paused at the top, listened, then started down. Hayes followed, each step echoing, each echo sounding like a countdown. At the bottom, a heavy door, sealed, but light spilled from underneath. Stone kicked it open, weapon ready. The room beyond was large, concrete walls, old fallout shelter from Cold War days, and in the center, sitting on a folding chair like he was waiting for a bus, Marcus Holt. He didn't move, didn't reach for weapons, just sat there, older than his photos, grayer, lines carved deep by years of living in the margins, but his eyes were sharp, alive, burning with something that might have been hate or might have been hurt or might have been both, so tangled together they'd become the same thing. "You came," his voice echoed. "I thought you might run, grab your 60 cadets and disappear, leave me to make my exit, but no, same old phantom, can't let anything go." Stone lowered her weapon, didn't holster it, just lowered. "Where's your team?" "Gone, gave them orders to stand down, told them I'd handle this personally." Marcus gestured to the case at his feet. Same metallic rectangle from before, locked, sealed. "You want to know what's inside, that's why you're here." "I need to know." "Why? So you can justify stopping me. So you can tell yourself you're doing the right thing when you put a bullet in my head and take it back." "I'm not going to kill you, Marcus." "Aren't you?" He stood, slowly. "Fallujah, you sacrificed me to save yourself. Today you'll sacrifice me to save 60 kids. The math is even better this time. 1 life for 60. That's a bargain any rational commander takes." Stone shook her head. "I'm not that person anymore." "Then prove it." Marcus kicked the case toward her. It slid across concrete, stopped at her feet. "Open it, see what you're willing to kill for, what I'm willing to die for, then make your choice." Stone knelt. Hayes watched her hands move to the latches. Standard military case. Combination lock, but the lock hung open. Marcus had already unlocked it, waiting for this moment, waiting for her to see. She opened it. Inside, nothing but foam padding and empty space where something heavy had rested. Indentations, shape of components, but the case was empty. Stone looked up, confused. "Where?" "Already gone," Marcus smiled, cold. "Did you think I'd wait around with the actual merchandise? Did you think I was that stupid?" "Then why the empty case? Why leave it here?" "Because I needed you to come. Needed you to walk into this room. Needed you right here, right now, so I could tell you the truth you've been avoiding for 8 years. Stone stood, weapon coming back up. "What truth?" "That there is no weapon. There never was." Marcus's voice was ice. "That case you saw a steal, decoy. The real objective was data, encrypted drives with classified information about operations like Fallujah, operations where soldiers were sent to die as political cover. I've spent 8 years collecting evidence, building a case, and last night I walked into that armory and took the final piece." Hayes felt something cold slide through his gut. "You're blowing the whistle. This whole thing is about exposing classified operations." "Smart kid." Marcus didn't take his eyes off Stone. "But here's the thing. That data implicates a lot of people. Generals, politicians, people with power who'd rather burn this entire base to the ground than let those files reach a journalist. And they already know the data is compromised. They already have a response plan." Stone's face went white. "Operation Cauterize." "You remember? Good, then you know what's coming. In about 90 minutes they'll authorize a drone strike on Fort Blackstone Training Complex. Eliminate the compromise. They'll blame it on a training accident, gas leak, munitions malfunction, whatever sells to the press. But 480 cadets will be dead. My team will be dead. You'll be dead. And those files will burn before anyone sees what's in them." "You're lying." "Am I?" Marcus pulled out a tablet, held it up. Hayes could see military communications, classifications, authorization codes. "I've been monitoring their channels, watching them coordinate. Right now, there's a Predator drone circling 40,000 feet above us, armed with AGM Hellfires, waiting for the execute order. And that order will come the moment they confirm I've left the base with the data." Stone stared at the tablet, at the evidence scrolling past. "You set this up. You planned this. You wanted them to authorize Cauterize." "I wanted them to show their hand, to prove they'd rather kill their own soldiers than face accountability. And you, Phantom, you're going to help me prove it." "How?" "By choosing, again." Marcus stepped closer. "Option 1, you kill me, take the data, destroy it, the drone never launches, the cadets live. And in 2 years, another team gets sent into another Fallujah. Another 10 soldiers die. Another Marcus gets his career destroyed. The cycle continues. Option 2. You let me walk out of here. Let me deliver this data to people who will publish it. Force the military to face what they've done. The drone launches. Everyone dies, but the truth gets out. And maybe, just maybe, it stops happening. Stone's weapon was shaking now, barely, just enough for Hayes to notice. That's not a choice, that's murder. That's command. Marcus's voice softened, just a fraction. That's what I tried to teach you in Fallujah. Sometimes there are no good options. Sometimes you have to choose between bad and worse. I chose to save who I could. You chose to follow orders, and 10 people died because of it. Today I'm asking you to make the opposite choice. Choose truth over orders. Choose long-term change over short-term safety. Choose the hard right over the easy wrong. And if I refuse, then you prove I was right about you all along. That loyalty doesn't matter. That truth doesn't matter. That at the end of the day, you'll always choose to protect the system over protecting the people the system is supposed to serve. Marcus moved toward the door. I'm leaving now. I'm walking out of this room, out of this base. And in 90 minutes, a drone will turn this entire complex into rubble. Your choice, Phantom. Stop me and save the cadets, or let me go and save the truth. You've got 60 seconds to decide. He walked past her, past Hayes, toward the stairs. Stone stood frozen, weapon still in hand, every muscle locked. Hayes could see the war happening behind her eyes, the calculations, the mathematics of 480 lives against the promise of change, the weight of command pressing down like mountains made of bone and regret. Marcus reached the stairs, started climbing, his footsteps echoing like a clock counting down. Stone raised her weapon, aimed at his back, finger on the trigger. Hayes held his breath. 10 seconds, 20, 30. Marcus reached the top, turned back, looked down at Stone. I loved you once, like a daughter, like the soldier I hoped I'd be. When you testified against me, when you chose truth over loyalty, it broke something. But maybe you were right. Maybe truth matters more. This is your chance to prove it. Your chance to choose what you couldn't choose before. He disappeared through the doorway, gone. Stone lowered her weapon, slowly, like it weighed 1,000 pounds. She turned to Hayes, her face was ash, her eyes were empty, and when she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Get to the bird. Radio Fort Blackstone. Tell them to evacuate, all personnel. Tell them Operation Cauterize has been authorized. Tell them they have 90 minutes. Ma'am, what about you? I'm going after Marcus. Captain Stone, if what he said is true. It's true, I saw the authorization codes. I know how the system works. They'll burn this place to cover up the truth, and Marcus is going to die trying to expose it. She holstered her weapon. But he's wrong about one thing. There is a third option, and I'm going to take it. What option? Save the cadets and get the truth out. She grabbed his arm. But I can't do it alone. I need you to trust me. One more time, can you do that? Hayes looked at his captain, saw the soldier she'd been, the mistakes she'd made, the weight she carried, and underneath all of it something he recognized, determination, the kind that doesn't bend, the kind that breaks before it yields. Yes, ma'am. Good, then run. They ran up the stairs, through the armory, out into daylight that felt too bright after the darkness below. Raven 7 waited, engine still running, still ready. They climbed in. Stone took the controls, pulled pitch without checking instruments. They lifted off hard and fast, nose dropping as she poured on speed. Hayes, I need you to do something that's going to get us both court-martialed. I'm listening. Patch me into the base command frequency, the one they use for emergency broadcasts. I'm going to tell Fort Blackstone the truth, all of it. What Marcus stole, what's coming, what they need to do. And while I'm doing that, you're going to hack into the training operations network and send out an evacuation order to all cadet units. Direct from me. Full authority. Ma'am, that'll trigger every alarm in the system. They'll know something's wrong. Good, I want them to know. I want everyone to know. Because once that information is public, once I've broadcast it over open channels, the military can't cover it up with a drone strike. Too many witnesses. Too many people who heard. They'll have to stand down, or they'll have to explain why they killed everyone who knew the truth. Hayes understood. It was insane, brilliant, career-ending, and probably the only chance any of them had. What about Marcus? Marcus wanted me to choose between saving cadets or exposing truth. I'm choosing both, and if he's half the soldier I remember, he'll adapt. She keyed the radio. Fort Blackstone Command, this is Captain Alexis Stone. Emergency broadcast, all frequencies. This is not a drill. Static, then a voice, confused. Captain Stone, this is command. What's the nature of your emergency? Operation Cauterize has been authorized for this location. Drone strike inbound. ETA 90 minutes. All personnel are to evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Silence, then chaos. Multiple voices, demands for confirmation, demands for authentication codes. Stone ignored them all, just kept broadcasting, kept repeating the message, over and over, making sure every radio in range heard it, every person, every witness who could later testify about what they heard. Hayes was hacking the training network. It wasn't hard. The password protocols were designed for security against outsiders, not against pilots with admin access. He found the cadet coordination system, found the message template for evacuation orders, started typing. To all cadet units, Operation Sentinel Shield. From Captain A. Stone, Aviation Training Command. Subject, immediate evacuation. Effective immediately, all cadet units are to cease training operations and proceed to evacuation point Omega. This is a legitimate emergency. Base is compromised. Expect aerial asset threat. Move to rally point. Secure transport will be provided. Do not delay. Do not question. Move now. He hit send. Watched the message propagate. 2 seconds later, alarms started screaming across the base network. Security alerts. Authentication failures. Unauthorized command override. The digital equivalent of every warning light in the cockpit coming on at once. Stone kept broadcasting, her voice steady, professional, explaining what was happening, what Marcus had stolen, what the military planned to do about it. Every word another nail in the coffin of her career. Every sentence another piece of evidence that would be used against her at the court-martial that was now inevitable. But every word was also a shield, proof that she'd tried to save lives, proof that she'd chosen truth, proof that when forced to choose between orders and conscience, she'd chosen conscience. And somewhere out there, Marcus Holt was listening, hearing the woman who destroyed his career 8 years ago now destroying her own career to do the right thing, to prove he'd been wrong about her, to show that people could change, that loyalty and truth didn't have to be enemies, that sometimes the only way to save both was to sacrifice everything else. The radio erupted, multiple stations, all demanding Stone stand down, all ordering her to cease transmission, all threatening consequences. She ignored them, just kept broadcasting, just kept telling the truth. Hayes watched the cadet tracking system, saw the icons start moving. 60 kids at checkpoints Foxtrot and Golf, starting to move, heading toward Rally Point, confused but obedient, trusting that Captain Stone knew what she was doing. Then he saw something else. New icons appearing at the edge of the map, 5 of them, moving fast, converging on the cadets' position. "Ma'am, Marcus's team. They're going after the cadets." Stone cursed, banked hard toward checkpoints Foxtrot and Golf. "How long until they intercept?" Hayes did the math. 10 minutes, maybe less. "Can we beat them there?" "Not in this bird. Not with the fuel we've got left." Stone's jaw set. "Then we make them stop." She dove, dropping altitude fast, heading straight toward where Marcus's team would be. Hayes pulled up the tactical display. 5 operators, moving tactical, probably armed, definitely trained, against 1 helicopter with minimal weapons and 2 pilots who weren't infantry. The math was bad, really bad. But Stone wasn't looking at the math. She was looking at the horizon, at the mountains, at the 60 kids who'd trusted her to keep them safe. And in her eyes, Hayes saw something he'd only seen once before. In the faces of pilots who'd flown into impossible situations because someone had to and they were the only ones there. It wasn't courage. Courage implied a choice. This was something else, something older. The thing that made soldiers run toward gunfire instead of away. The thing that turned ordinary people into the kind of heroes who got medals or coffins or both. Stone keyed the radio. One more time, but this time not to Fort Blackstone, to a different frequency, the encrypted one, the one Marcus had used. "Overwatch, this is Phantom. I know you're listening. I know your team is moving on those cadets. I'm broadcasting a new message. Stand down. Leave the kids alone. This is between you and me." Static, then Marcus's voice. "You're making this harder than it needs to be. You gave me a choice. I made it. I chose truth and lives, both, not either or. And if your team touches those cadets, if they hurt even one of them, I'll spend the rest of my life hunting every single operator you've ever worked with. I'll burn your entire network to the ground. You know I can do it. You trained me." Silence, long enough that Hayes thought Marcus had cut the channel. Then, "You really think you can save everyone? You really think there's a world where the cadets live and the truth gets out and nobody pays the price?" "I think I have to try, because 8 years ago I didn't. 8 years ago I chose wrong. I chose to protect myself instead of protecting the people who depended on me, and 10 people died, and you paid the price for my cowardice. But I'm not that soldier anymore, Marcus. You taught me to be better, even if you didn't mean to." Another pause, then, "My team stands down. The cadets are yours, but Phantom understands something. That drone is still coming, whether you broadcast the truth or not, whether you save those kids or not. The people who cauterize don't care about witnesses or exposure. They care about eliminating the problem, and right now you're the problem. Then I better move fast." "You better move smart." Marcus's voice softened. "For what it's worth, you were a good soldier, the best I trained. I'm sorry it had to end this way." "It doesn't have to end at all. Help me save them, all of them. We can still get everyone out." "No, we can't, because I'm not leaving. This is my mission, my truth, my price to pay, but you get to live. You get to make sure those kids go home to their families. You get to be the hero you always wanted to be, the one I never let you be in Fallujah." The channel cut. Marcus was gone, but his team's icons on the tactical display stopped moving, holding position, standing down like he'd ordered. The cadets kept moving, heading toward Rally Point. 60 kids who had no idea how close they'd come to dying. Stone brought Raven 7 around, heading for the rally point. She was breathing hard. Hayes could see sweat on her temples despite the cold air pouring through the vents. "Ma'am, we need to get everyone off base. Now, before that drone gets authorization." "Working on it." She keyed the radio again. "All units, this is Captain Stone. Rally Point Omega is hot. Repeat, Rally Omega is compromised. All cadets proceed to secondary extraction, Rally Point Echo. Transport is inbound. I need every vehicle Fort Blackstone can spare. Buses, trucks, helicopters, anything that moves. Get them to Echo. We have 60 minutes to get 480 people off this base before it becomes a crater. Someone on the other end, a colonel by the sound of his voice, tried to cut in, demanding verification, demanding chain of command, demanding all the things that regulations said were necessary before you evacuated an entire military installation. Stone ignored him, just kept giving orders, her voice the only authority that mattered, because she'd made it matter by speaking truth loud enough that silence was no longer an option. Hayes watched the tactical display, watched the icons move, cadets converging, transport vehicles rolling, the entire base mobilizing because one captain had decided that saving lives mattered more than saving her career. And somewhere in the mountains, Marcus Holt was listening, hearing the chaos, hearing his old student finally learning the lesson he tried to teach her 8 years ago, that sometimes the only way to do right was to do wrong by the rules. That loyalty meant sacrifice. That truth had a price, but silence cost more. Raven 7 flew through Colorado sky. Below, Fort Blackstone Training Complex scrambled to evacuate. 480 cadets ran toward extraction points. And overhead, 40,000 feet up where the air was thin and cold, a Predator drone circled, waiting for orders, waiting to turn training ranges into tombs, waiting for someone to authorize the kind of strike that erased problems and created ghosts. Captain Alexis Stone had 90 minutes to prove there was another way. 90 minutes to save everyone she'd sworn to protect. 90 minutes to earn back what she'd lost 8 years ago in a desert called Fallujah. The clock was running, the truth was out, and the price was coming due. Rally Point Echo sat in a natural bowl carved between 3 peaks, defensible, visible from air, large enough for multiple helicopters and ground vehicles. Stone had chosen it years ago during her first month as an instructor, mapping every inch of Fort Blackstone's terrain for scenarios exactly like this. Scenarios she'd hoped would never come. Now those scenarios were real, and 480 lives depended on her having planned well enough. Raven 7 came in fast. Stone flared hard, touching down with a jolt that rattled Hayes's teeth. Before the skids fully settled, she was out, running, moving toward the first cluster of cadets already assembled, young faces, confused, some scared, all looking to her for answers she didn't have time to give. A master sergeant emerged from the group, same one from Checkpoint Alpha, Chen. His face was carved from granite, but his eyes held questions that demanded answers. Captain Stone, we got your order, pulled everyone off range, but nobody at command is confirming. Nobody's saying what the threat is. Just a lot of shouting about unauthorized broadcasts and insubordination. He stepped closer, voice dropping. Ma'am, what the hell is happening? Stone met his eyes, didn't flinch. Pentagon authorized a drone strike on this facility. We have 53 minutes to get everyone clear before AGM Hellfires turn this valley into a parking lot. Chen's face went pale, but he didn't panic. 30 years in uniform taught you how to function when the world ended. Why? Because I forced their hand. Because the truth about operations like Fallujah is about to go public. Because they'd rather kill everyone who knows than face accountability. Stone turned toward the assembled cadets. How many are here? 240. We've got convoys inbound with the rest. Estimated arrival 20 minutes. 20 minutes to get 240 more cadets. Then however long to load everyone onto transport and move them beyond the blast radius. Stone did the math. It was tight, dangerously tight. One delay, one mistake, one vehicle breakdown, and people died. Where's the transport? 12 buses, 8 cargo trucks, 3 Black Hawks including yours. Chen checked his watch. Base motor pool is moving everything they've got. But Captain, even with all that, we're talking 45 minutes minimum to load and move. And you said we have 53 minutes. Then we better not waste 8. Stone moved to the center of the rally point, climbed onto a equipment crate so everyone could see her. 480 pairs of eyes turned her direction, some still jogging in from perimeter positions, others already formed up in their training units, all of them young, all of them trusting that the system would protect them. That training exercises stayed training. That death was something that happened to other people in other places. Stone was about to shatter that illusion. Listen up, I'm going to tell you the truth. No sugar coating, no soft words, just facts. Her voice carried across the bowl, command voice. The kind that cut through noise and fear and confusion. Fort Blackstone is compromised. A drone strike has been authorized on this location. You have approximately 50 minutes before missiles rain down on every structure, every vehicle, every living thing within a 10-kilometer radius. Silence, the kind that comes right before panic. Stone pushed through it. You did nothing wrong. You're not the target, but you're in the blast zone, which means right now your only job is survival. When transport arrives, you will board quickly and efficiently. You will help each other. You will not panic. You will not question orders. You will move like your life depends on it because it does. A hand went up, female cadet, early 20s. Stone recognized her. Anna Reyes, 22 years old, top of her class. Prior enlisted who'd earned her commission through OCS. Strong, smart. The kind of soldier who asked questions when things didn't make sense. "Ma'am, what about you?" Reyes' voice was clear despite the fear underneath. "I'll be the last one out, same as always." Stone scanned the crowd. "Any other questions?" Another hand, male, older than most, maybe prior service. "Ma'am, why is the Pentagon striking their own base?" Stone could have lied, could have given them a sanitized version, but these kids deserved truth, especially if some of them didn't make it out. Because 8 years ago, soldiers like you were sent into combat situations designed to fail, used as political cover for operations that should never have happened. People died, careers ended, and the men who gave those orders covered it up. Today, evidence of those operations is about to go public, and rather than face consequences, those same men have decided it's easier to eliminate the evidence, which includes this base, which includes all of us. The silence deepened, but it wasn't panic anymore. It was anger, the cold kind, the kind that sharpened instead of blunted. Stone recognized it. She'd felt it 8 years ago when she realized her team had been sacrificed for political convenience. So we're being murdered to protect somebody's career. The prior service cadet again, his voice hard as steel. "Yes. And you're telling us this because if we die today, I want you to die knowing why. I want you to die angry, not confused, not thinking you made a mistake or failed somehow. You didn't fail. The system failed you, just like it failed soldiers before you, just like it'll fail soldiers after you unless something changes. And if we live." Stone smiled, thin, sharp. "Then you remember this day. You remember what almost happened. And you make damn sure it never happens again. You become the officers and NCOs who ask questions when orders don't make sense, who protect their people instead of protecting their careers, who choose right over easy even when it costs them everything." The cadet nodded. Something passed between them. Understanding, recognition, the kind of bond that forms between people who have looked at death together and decided they weren't going to blink. The sound of engines rumbled through the valley. Transport was arriving, 12 buses, 8 trucks, dust clouds marking their approach. Chen started organizing loading teams. Cadets moved into formation. Smooth, efficient. fear channeled into action. Hayes appeared at Stone's elbow. "Ma'am, we've got a problem." "Add it to the list." "Command is refusing to authorize the evacuation. Colonel Briggs is on radio demanding you stand down. Says this is an unauthorized operation. Says you're creating panic over unconfirmed intelligence. Says if you don't cease immediately, he'll have MPs arrest you." Stone's jaw tightened. Briggs is a politician in uniform. He's probably the one who authorized cauterize in the first place. Tell him to arrest me after we're clear of the blast radius. Until then, he can direct his complaints to my court-martial. "Ma'am, if command isn't supporting this, we have no authority, no logistics coordination, no air support. We're completely alone out here." "Then alone is how we do it." Stone turned toward the buses. "How long until everyone's loaded?" 30 minutes if we're lucky." Stone checked her watch. 47 minutes until impact, 30 to load. That left 17 minutes to drive beyond the 10-kilometer blast radius. On mountain roads, with 12 buses and 8 trucks, it was possible, barely. "Get them moving. I'm going to buy us more time." "How?" "By making command think twice about launching that drone." Stone moved to Raven 7, climbed in, started systems. Hayes followed, strapping in without being told. The turbines wound up. That familiar whine that meant power and speed and the possibility of staying ahead of death one more time. They lifted off. Stone banked hard toward Fort Blackstone's main compound, toward the command center where Colonel Briggs sat in his climate-controlled office making decisions about other people's lives. "Ma'am, what are we doing?" "We're going to have a conversation with the colonel, face to face." Stone pushed the throttle forward. "Sometimes people make better decisions when they have to look you in the eye." They covered the distance in 4 minutes. Stone brought Raven 7 down in the command center's parking lot, not the designated landing pad, the parking lot, right in front of the building's main entrance. Rotors still spinning, engine running hot, blocking 3 staff cars and the commander's personal vehicle. She unstrapped, grabbed her sidearm, checked the magazine out of habit even though she had no intention of firing it. Hayes stared at her. "Captain, you can't just walk into the command center armed and—" "Stay with the bird. If I'm not back in 5 minutes, take off without me. Get back to Rally Echo. Help Chen with the evacuation." "Ma'am." "That's an order, Lieutenant." Stone climbed out, walked across tarmac still hot from rotor wash, through the front doors like she owned the place, past the duty desk where a startled corporal tried to stop her. She kept walking, upstairs, down corridors, to the operations center where decisions got made and lives got measured in acceptable losses. The doors were closed. 2 MPs stood guard. They stepped forward as Stone approached, hands moving toward sidearms. She stopped 3 paces away. "I need to see Colonel Briggs." "Ma'am, the colonel is not seeing anyone without an appointment." "Tell him Captain Stone is here. Tell him I'm here to discuss Operation Cauterize. Tell him he has 30 seconds to open this door or I'm going to kick it in." The MPs exchanged glances. One spoke into his radio, listened. His expression changed, hardened. He moved his hand to his weapon. "Ma'am, the colonel says you're to stand down and report to the provost marshal for disciplinary action." "That's not going to happen." "Ma'am, I don't want to arrest you, but—" The door opened. Colonel Briggs stood there, mid-50s, soft around the middle from too many years behind desks, but his eyes were sharp, political sharp, the kind that calculated angles and benefits and costs before speaking. "Captain Stone, this is highly irregular." So, is murdering 480 cadets to cover up a scandal, sir? Briggs's face went carefully neutral. I have no idea what you're talking about. Operation Cauterize. Authorization code Delta 779er. Predator drone currently circling at 40,000 feet. AGM Hellfire payload. Impact time 41 minutes from now. Ring any bells? Something flickered behind Briggs's eyes. Not surprise, calculation. He glanced at the MPs. Leave us. They hesitated. Briggs's voice sharpened. I said leave. The MPs retreated. Briggs stepped back, gestured Stone inside. The operations center was exactly what she expected. Banks of computers, situational displays, officers clustered around terminals pretending they weren't listening. Briggs led her to a side office. Closed the door. Soundproof glass. Privacy for conversations that couldn't be public. Captain, you've had a difficult 24 hours. Stress can cause. Don't, Stone's voice was ice. Don't insult me by pretending this isn't happening. I've seen the authorization codes. I've monitored the channels. I know exactly what's coming. And I know you're one of the officers who signed off on it. Briggs sat behind his desk, steepled his fingers. Let's assume, hypothetically, that such an operation existed. Let's assume it was authorized at levels far above your clearance or mine. Let's assume it was necessary to protect national security interests that you can't begin to understand. What exactly do you expect me to do about it? Stop it, call it off. Contact whoever authorized it and tell them the cadets are evacuating. Tell them there's no longer a need for the strike. And if I did that, hypothetically, what makes you think they'd listen? Because you outrank me. Because you have connections I don't. Because if 480 kids die today, their blood is on your hands as much as anyone's. Briggs leaned back. Captain Stone, do you know what happens when junior officers decide they understand strategic decisions better than their commanders? When they decide their conscience matters more than the chain of command? They save lives. They create chaos. They undermine trust. They make it impossible for the military to function as a cohesive unit. He stood. You've done tremendous damage today, broadcasting classified information, ordering unauthorized evacuations, threatening superior officers. That's career-ending behavior, court-martial, dishonorable discharge, possibly prison time. I don't care about my career. Then what do you care about? Those 480 cadets, getting them home to their families, making sure they have a chance to become the soldiers this country needs, not casualties of political convenience. Briggs studied her. You really believe that, don't you? You really think you're doing the right thing? I know I am. And 8 years ago in Fallujah, when you testified against Colonel Holt, when you ended his career to save yours, was that the right thing too? Stone flinched. That was different. Was it, or was it the same choice with different math? Save yourself or save someone else. Follow regulations or follow conscience. You chose regulations then. You're choosing conscience now. What changed? I learned the cost of choosing wrong. Briggs nodded, like he'd expected that answer. Captain, I'm going to tell you something I probably shouldn't. That drone, it's not coming. Stone's world tilted. What? Operation Cauterize was never authorized. Not really. It was a contingency plan, a theoretical response to a worst-case scenario. But the decision-makers at NORTHCOM took one look at the political fallout from striking a training base full of cadets and decided it wasn't worth it. They're going to let the information go public. Weather the scandal, take their hits, but they're not going to kill kids over it. Relief and fury warred in Stone's chest. You let me think. I let you make a choice, based on incomplete information, same as Fallujah, same as every difficult decision any commander ever makes. You had to decide what you believed was right. You had to commit. And you did. You evacuated those cadets. You broadcast the truth. You destroyed your career, all to save lives that were never actually in danger. Stone's hands clenched into fists. You bastard, you were testing me. I was seeing what you'd learned, whether 8 years had changed you, whether you'd make the same mistake or a different one. Briggs came around the desk. And you know what? You passed. You chose people over career, conscience over regulations, truth over convenience. That's growth, Captain. That's what we need in leaders. So there's no drone. There's a drone, just not armed. It's reconnaissance, making sure the classified data Marcus Holt stole doesn't leave the area. But missiles? No, that was never going to happen. Stone felt like she'd been punched. Marcus knew. He knew there was no strike. He lied to me. Or he was testing you too. Seems like a lot of people want to know if Captain Alexis Stone has finally figured out what kind of soldier she wants to be. Stone's mind raced. Marcus had lied about cauterize, created a crisis that didn't exist, forced her to choose between following orders and saving lives. And she'd chosen lives, chosen truth, destroyed her career for a threat that wasn't real. But the cadets were still in danger, because Marcus was still out there with classified data. And if he left the base with it, if he exposed what was in those files, the consequences wouldn't be a drone strike. They'd be political, legal, the kind that destroyed institutions and ended careers across the entire chain of command. Where's Marcus now? Briggs pulled up a display. Surveillance has him heading toward the north perimeter. There's a service road that connects to the highway. He's got maybe 20 minutes before he's off base and beyond our jurisdiction. I need to stop him. Captain Marcus Holt is a wanted man, former Special Forces turned contractor. He's stolen classified materials, assaulted federal officers, threatened military personnel. If he leaves this base, that becomes a federal manhunt. Multiple agencies. He won't get far. You don't understand. This isn't about stopping him from escaping. This is about stopping him from destroying himself. Stone moved toward the door. 8 years ago, I let the system destroy him. I'm not letting him finish the job. Captain, even if you catch him, what then? You can't let him keep those files. You can't let him expose operations that could compromise national security. Stone stopped, turned. Colonel, with respect, national security is a phrase people use when they don't want to admit they made mistakes. Those operations Marcus is exposing. They got soldiers killed. Good people. People who trusted the system to use them wisely and instead got used as political pawns. If exposing that compromises national security, then maybe national security needs to be compromised. She left before Briggs could respond, ran down corridors, past offices where people stared, past MPs who didn't try to stop her because nobody had told them what to do with a captain who just committed career suicide and didn't seem to care. Hayes had Raven 7 ready, engine running, rotors at flight idle. He saw her coming and increased power. She climbed in, strapped in, grabbed controls. North perimeter, service road. Marcus is making his exit. They lifted off hard, climbing fast, banking toward the northern edge of Fort Blackstone where mountains gave way to foothills and civilization crept back in. Below, Stone could see the service road, a single vehicle moving fast, black SUV, no markings, Marcus's exit vehicle. Ma'am, what are we doing? Briggs said there's no strike, the cadets are safe, we can let Marcus go. We can, but we won't. Why not? Because Marcus didn't do this for money or revenge or even justice. He did it to prove a point, that the system is broken, that soldiers are expendable, that the people in charge care more about covering their asses than protecting their people. And if he leaves with those files, if he exposes everything, he proves that point. He wins, but he also destroys himself in the process, becomes a fugitive, a traitor, spends the rest of his life running from the very country he served. Hayes processed that, so we stop him to save him. We stop him to give him another choice, the one nobody gave him 8 years ago. Stone pushed Raven 7 to maximum speed. The helicopter shook, turbines screaming, they ate up distance. The SUV grew larger. Stone could see Marcus driving, alone, his team already extracted or waiting elsewhere. This was his moment, his final exit, the end of whatever game he'd been playing. Stone brought the helicopter down ahead of the SUV, landing hard in the middle of the road, blocking it, rotors still spinning, creating a wall of wind and noise and metal. The SUV skidded, stopped 50 meters back. For a moment, nothing happened. Just two former teammates facing each other across pavement and history and choices that couldn't be unmade. Then Marcus climbed out. He didn't draw a weapon, just stood there, waiting. Stone unstrapped. Hayes grabbed her arm. "Ma'am, don't. Stay here. If this goes bad, get clear." "Captain." "That's in order." She climbed out, walked toward Marcus. The rotor wash pulled at her flight suit, kicked up dust and small stones. She didn't slow down, didn't show fear, just moved like she was walking across a training field to discuss next week's schedule. They met halfway. Stone studied him up close, saw the years written in lines around his eyes, saw the scars, saw the ghost of the man who'd taught her to fly and fight and survive, and underneath it all saw something that might have been hope or might have been resignation or might have been both. "You lied to me," Stone's voice carried over the helicopter noise. "There was no drone strike, no cauterized authorization. You made it up." Marcus smiled, tired. "Not entirely. The authorization exists, the capability exists, but you're right. They weren't going to launch today, not yet. Not unless I forced their hand by actually leaving the base with the data. So this whole thing was theater, forcing me to choose, seeing if I'd changed. Partly, but also giving you a chance to prove you learned the lesson from Fallujah, that loyalty matters, that truth matters, that sometimes you have to break the rules to do what's right." "And did I pass your test?" "You evacuated 480 cadets based on a threat you couldn't confirm. You broadcast classified information knowing it would end your career. You chose conscience over convenience." Marcus's expression softened. "Yeah, Phantom, you passed. You're not the soldier who let me down 8 years ago. You're the soldier I hoped you'd become." "Then why are you still running? Why take the data? Why force this confrontation?" "Because someone has to. Because if I don't expose what's in these files, someone else gets sent into another Fallujah. Another team gets sacrificed. Another good officer gets destroyed for trying to do the right thing." He gestured toward the SUV. "I'm not running, Phantom. I'm finishing what we started. What you and I and 10 dead soldiers started when we walked into that desert 8 years ago. And you'll spend the rest of your life as a fugitive, always running, always looking over your shoulder, never able to come home. That's the price. I've made peace with it." Stone stepped closer. "What if there's another way? What if you could expose the truth without destroying yourself? What if we did it together?" Marcus laughed, actually laughed. "Together? Phantom, you just committed career suicide evacuating those cadets. You add helping me to the list and they'll put you in Leavenworth next to Bradley Manning. Maybe, or maybe we do this smart. We don't leak the files to journalists. We take them to the Inspector General. We file formal complaints through proper channels. We force an investigation from inside the system instead of burning it down from outside. The system protects itself. You know that. We file complaints, they get buried. We request investigations, they get stonewalled, nothing changes. It changes if we make noise they can't ignore, if we get witnesses, if we get other soldiers who have been through the same thing to come forward, if we build a case so airtight they can't dismiss it. Stone held out her hand. Give me the data. Let me help you do this right. Let me be the partner I should have been 8 years ago. Marcus stared at her outstretched hand. For 10 seconds he didn't move. The helicopter turbines wound down as haze shut them off. Silence crept back in. Mountain wind. Distant bird calls. The sound of two people trying to decide if trust was still possible after betrayal. Finally Marcus spoke. You know what the hardest part of Fallujah was? Not the firefight, not watching our people die. It was realizing you'd chosen to destroy me rather than admit the mission was flawed, that you valued being right more than being loyal. That broke something, Phantom. Something I'm not sure can be fixed. I know, and I've spent 8 years living with that choice, wishing I could take it back, wishing I'd been brave enough to stand with you instead of against you. I can't change the past, Marcus, but I can choose differently now. I can stand with you, fight with you, pay the price with you instead of making you pay it alone. Why risk everything now? Those cadets are safe. Cauterize isn't happening. You could walk away, salvage your career, maybe even get a medal for quick thinking under pressure. Why throw it away for me? Because you were right. 8 years ago you were right. Loyalty matters more than regulations. People matter more than missions. And I learned that lesson by watching what happened when I ignored it. 10 people died. You lost everything. And I got to keep flying while carrying guilt that weighed more than any helicopter I ever piloted. Stone's voice cracked. I can't give you back what you lost. Can't bring back the dead. Can't undo the testimony that destroyed your career. But I can stand here and say I was wrong. I can admit I chose poorly, and I can offer to make it right, even if it costs me everything. Marcus's eyes were wet, just a shine, just enough to show the man beneath the operator. You really mean that? Every word. And if I give you this data, if I trust you one more time, what happens then? Then we take it to people who can't ignore it. We blow the whistle properly, through channels designed for this exact scenario. We protect ourselves legally while exposing the truth. And we do it together, as teammates, the way we should have done it the first time. Marcus looked at the SUV, at the files inside, at the evidence he'd spent 8 years collecting, his ticket to revenge, his proof that he'd been right all along, his justification for every hard choice he'd made since leaving the military. Then he looked at Stone, saw something he hadn't seen 8 years ago: certainty. Not the arrogant kind that comes from thinking you're right, the earned kind that comes from being wrong and surviving it. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a thumb drive, held it up. Everything's on here, every operation like Fallujah, every mission designed to fail, every soldier used as a political shield. It's enough to bring down generals, ruin careers, maybe even trigger congressional investigations. Then let's use it the right way, not as a weapon, as evidence. Marcus extended his hand. The thumb drive rested in his palm. You drop this. You cover it up. You betray me again, I'll make sure the next leak is so public, so loud, that every news organization in the country runs it. Understood? Understood. And Phantom, I'm trusting you. One last time, don't make me regret it. Stone took the drive, felt the weight of it. Such a small thing, barely an ounce, but carrying the ghosts of soldiers who died believing their country valued them, carrying Marcus's last chance at redemption, carrying her own path back to the soldier she'd meant to be. I won't, I promise. Marcus nodded, stepped back. Then I guess this is where we part ways. You take that to the IG. I disappear. When the investigation starts, when they need my testimony, I'll come forward. But until then, I'm a ghost. You don't have to run. Yeah, I do. Because there are people with a lot to lose if this goes public. And they're not going to wait for due process. They're going to come after me, hard and fast. Better if I'm somewhere they can't find me. And if you need help. Marcus smiled, real this time. Then I'll call my old student, the one who finally learned the lesson. He moved toward the SUV, stopped, turned back. Phantom, for what it's worth, I'm proud of you. You became the soldier I always knew you could be. Just took you a different path to get there. He climbed into the SUV, started the engine, gave a small salute through the window, then drove around Raven 7, down the road, into the distance. Gone. Stone stood there, thumb drive in her hand, watching Marcus disappear, feeling the weight of 8 years lifting, not entirely, never entirely, but enough to breathe, enough to move forward. Hayes approached. Ma'am, what now? Now we get back to Rally Echo, make sure every cadet gets home safe, then we face the music. The court-martial. The court-martial, the investigation, the consequences of choosing conscience over career. Stone climbed back into Raven 7. But first, we finish what we started. 480 kids are waiting for us to tell them they're safe. Let's not make them wait. They lifted off, flew back toward Rally Echo. Below, Fort Blackstone sprawled across the Colorado wilderness, a training base that had almost become a mass grave, a place where young soldiers learned to serve their country, where some learned the hard way that service sometimes meant sacrifice. Rally Echo came into view. The buses were loaded, cadets packed in, ready to move. Chen stood by the lead vehicle. When he saw Raven 7 approach, he keyed his radio. Captain Stone, we're ready to roll. All 480 accounted for. No injuries, no incidents, waiting on your order. Stone keyed her mic. Move out, Sergeant. Get them clear. All the way to Peterson Space Force Base if you need to. I'll coordinate with command to make sure you have clearance. And you, ma'am. I'll be right behind you. She wouldn't be, they both knew it. Stone had one more stop to make, one more choice to own, but the cadets didn't need to know that. They needed to go home, to hug their families, to continue training, to become the soldiers their country needed. Soldiers who'd learned early that the system wasn't perfect, that sometimes you had to question orders, that conscience mattered. The convoy began moving, 12 buses, 8 trucks, a long snake of vehicles winding down mountain roads toward safety. Stone circled overhead, watching, making sure, being the guardian she'd promised to be. When the last vehicle cleared the Fort Blackstone perimeter, when all 480 cadets were officially safe and accounted for, Stone turned Raven 7 back toward base, toward the command center, toward Colonel Briggs and whatever came next. Hayes was quiet, had been since they'd left Marcus. Finally, he spoke. Ma'am, what's on that drive? Evidence, testimony, proof that soldiers were sent into missions designed to fail, that careers were destroyed to protect political interests, that the system sometimes eats its own to maintain appearances. And you're really going to turn it in, go through proper channels. I am, because Marcus was right. If we leak it publicly, we get revenge. But if we do it legally, we get justice. And justice lasts longer than revenge. Even if it means court-martial, even if it means prison. Stone thought about that. About 8 years of guilt. 8 years of flying with ghosts in her co-pilot's seat. 8 years of wondering if she'd ever get a chance to make it right. Yeah, even then. Because for the first time in 8 years, I'm doing the thing I should have done from the start. Standing with my team instead of against them. Choosing loyalty over convenience. being the soldier Marcus taught me to be before I forgot what that meant. They landed at Fort Blackstone Command Center, same parking lot as before. Stone shut down the engines. The turbines wound down. Silence crept back. The kind that comes before storms or after them. The kind that means something has changed and won't change back. Stone unstrapped. Hayes did the same. They sat there. Two pilots who'd flown into impossible situations and somehow made it through, not unscathed, never unscathed, but alive, and that counted for something. Lieutenant Hayes, when they ask you what happened today, what are you going to say? Hayes considered. The truth, ma'am, that my captain identified a threat, evacuated personnel, saved 480 lives, did her job. They'll want to know about the broadcast, about the unauthorized operations, about insubordination and breach of protocol. Then I'll tell them my captain made command decisions under extreme circumstances, that she prioritized life safety over procedural compliance, that she demonstrated leadership under pressure. He met her eyes, and that I'd fly with her again without hesitation. Stone felt something crack in her chest, not breaking, opening. The shell she'd built 8 years ago, the armor that kept people out and guilt in. Hayes was offering loyalty, the kind she'd denied Marcus, the kind she'd spent 8 years trying to earn back. Thank you, Lieutenant. Don't thank me yet, ma'am. I'm about to be a terrible witness for the prosecution. They climbed out, walked toward the command center. MPs were waiting more than before. A full security detail. They formed up around Stone, professional, respectful, but unmistakably an arrest. The senior MP, a staff sergeant with deployment patches and tired eyes, stepped forward. Captain Stone, I'm instructed to escort you to the Provost Marshal. You're being detained pending investigation into conduct unbecoming, unauthorized operations, and misuse of military assets. I understand, Sergeant. Ma'am, I need your sidearm and any other weapons. Stone unholstered her M9, handed it over grip first. Safe, professional, the sergeant took it. His expression was neutral, but his eyes held something else. Respect maybe, or recognition. One soldier seeing another do the hard thing. This way, ma'am. They walked inside, down corridors now filled with personnel, officers and enlisted, all staring, some with judgment, some with curiosity, some with something that looked like approval barely hidden behind military bearing. At the Provost Marshal's office, Colonel Briggs waited. He dismissed the MPs, closed the door, left Stone and Hayes standing at attention. Captain Stone, you've had quite a day. Yes, sir. 480 cadets evacuated, base operations disrupted, unauthorized broadcasts on secure channels, theft of classified materials, conspiracy with a known fugitive. That's quite a list. Sir, if I may. You may not. Briggs's voice was steel. You will stand there and listen. You will not speak unless spoken to, and you will accept whatever consequences come from your actions today. Is that clear? Crystal, sir. Briggs circled them, predatory. Lieutenant Hayes, you aided and abetted. You could have stopped this, should have stopped this. Instead, you followed an officer who was clearly acting outside her authority. Why? Hayes stood tall. Because my captain identified a threat and took action to protect personnel under her charge, sir. I assessed the situation and determined her orders were lawful and necessary. Even when those orders violated protocol, even when they contradicted direct instructions from superior officers. Sir, my captain taught me that sometimes the right thing and the regulation thing aren't the same thing. When they conflict, you choose right. Today we chose right. Briggs stopped circling, stood in front of them. And you're prepared to face court-martial for that choice. Yes, sir. Good, because that's exactly what's coming. He moved to his desk, pulled out two folders, opened them. Captain Stone, you're being charged with multiple violations of UCMJ, unauthorized operations, misuse of government property, breach of security protocols, insubordination. The list is extensive. You'll be formally arraigned within 72 hours. Until then, you're confined to quarters, pending investigation. Stone nodded, expected, and Lieutenant Hayes. Lieutenant Hayes is being charged as an accessory. He'll face non-judicial punishment at minimum, possible court-martial depending on how cooperative he is with the investigation. Sir, Lieutenant Hayes was following my orders. If there's accountability to be had, it's mine, not his. The military doesn't work that way, Captain. Everyone owns their choices. Hayes chose to follow you. Now he gets to live with that. Briggs closed the folders. However, there is one complicating factor. At approximately 1500 hours today, the Pentagon received an anonymous package. Classified documents, testimony from multiple sources, evidence of operational failures dating back a decade. They're calling it the biggest intelligence breach since Snowden. Stone felt ice in her veins. Sir, I can explain. Can you? Can you explain how documents stolen from Fort Blackstone ended up in Pentagon hands? Can you explain how an anonymous source specifically requested investigation into operations similar to Fallujah? Can you explain how that same source provided testimony that corroborates your unauthorized broadcast from earlier today? Stone said nothing, because Marcus had moved faster than she'd expected, had already sent copies, had made sure the truth got out regardless of what she did with the thumb drive still in her pocket. Briggs smiled, thin. Thought so. Well, Captain, congratulations. You've triggered the exact investigation you claim to want: congressional oversight, inspector general inquiry, full review of classified operations going back 10 years. It's going to be messy. Careers will end. Reputations will burn. And you're going to be right in the middle of it. And the court-martial? Oh, that's still happening. You still broke regulations, still acted without authority, still created chaos. But now the brass can't quietly sweep it under the rug. Too many eyes, too much attention. So instead of quietly ending your career, they're going to make you famous. The whistleblower captain who exposed corruption. The hero who saved 480 cadets. The soldier who chose conscience over career. Stone processed that. They're going to use me. They're going to control the narrative. Turn your insubordination into principled dissent, your breach of protocol into courageous action, your career suicide into martyrdom. And in the process, they'll get to look like they support accountability while minimizing damage to the institution. And if I refuse to cooperate? Then you get the court-martial without the hero narrative. You get Leavenworth instead of early retirement with benefits. You get forgotten instead of remembered. Briggs leaned forward. Your choice, Captain. Play along and become a symbol, or fight back and become a cautionary tale. Stone looked at Hayes, saw him standing tall despite everything, despite the charges, despite the consequences, despite knowing his career was probably over before it really began, loyal to the end. She thought about Marcus, driving away into the sunset, free for now but never really free, always running, always looking back, living with choices that couldn't be unmade. She thought about 10 soldiers who died in Fallujah, about 480 cadets who'd live to see tomorrow, about the weight of command and the price of doing right. I'll cooperate, sir, on one condition. Briggs raised an eyebrow. You're not really in a position to negotiate. Lieutenant Hayes gets immunity, full. He walks away from this clean, no court-martial, no punishment, no black mark on his record. He was following orders from a superior officer. That's all. He doesn't deserve to pay for my choices. And if I refuse, then I fight. Every charge, every accusation. I make the trial so public, so messy that the brass can't control it. I call witnesses. I subpoena records. I turn the court-martial into the very investigation they're trying to avoid. Briggs studied her. You'd burn everything down to protect your co-pilot. I'd burn everything down to do the right thing, which includes not letting a good officer get destroyed because he had the misfortune of flying with me. Silence stretched. Then Briggs laughed, actually laughed. 8 years ago you testified against your commanding officer to save yourself. Today you're threatening to destroy the investigation to save a lieutenant. You really have changed, Captain. Is that a yes? It's a I'll see what I can do. Hayes is small potatoes. If he keeps his mouth shut and plays it smart, we can probably bury his involvement under the bigger story. But no guarantees. I'll take it. Briggs nodded, gestured to the MPs waiting outside. Take Captain Stone to BOQ confinement. Lieutenant Hayes to his quarters pending further investigation. Both are to remain on base. No contact with media. No communications except through official channels. The MPs moved in. Stone allowed herself to be escorted. No resistance. No drama, just acceptance. She'd made her choices. Now came the consequences. At the door, Hayes caught her eye, mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." Stone nodded. That was enough. 6 months later, Stone stood in a small office in Colorado Springs. No longer at Fort Blackstone. That base had been downsized. Training operations moved to other facilities. Too much bad publicity. Too many questions about how classified materials were stolen. Too many reporters asking about Operation Cauterize and drones and 480 cadets who almost died. The court-martial had lasted 3 weeks. High profile, media circus, everything Briggs had predicted. Stone pled guilty to lesser charges, got a dishonorable discharge downgraded to general under honorable conditions, lost her flight status, lost her rank, lost her career. But kept her conscience. The investigation had been worse. Months of testimony, depositions, congressional hearings, generals answering for operations they'd rather forget, politicians scrambling to distance themselves from decisions made in the shadows, the military reorganizing, reforming, promising change. Whether that change would last, Stone didn't know. Systems were good at protecting themselves, at adapting, at appearing to reform while maintaining the same basic structure. But at least now people were asking questions. At least now soldiers knew they could speak up. At least now there was a record, a precedent, something future officers could point to and say this happened before and the person who spoke up survived. Stone looked at the desk in front of her. Civilian, no military bearing, no rank insignia, just a simple nameplate, Alexis Stone, coordinator. She worked for a nonprofit now, organization that helped veterans transition to civilian life, gave them resources, support, someone to talk to when the nightmares got bad or the system got confusing or the weight of service got too heavy to carry alone. It wasn't flying, wasn't command, wasn't the career she trained for and dreamed about and built her identity around. But it was service, different kind, quieter, but no less important. Her phone buzzed, text message, unknown number. Saw the news, investigation wrapped. Good work, Phantom, stay safe, OH. Oh, Overwatch. Marcus, still out there, still free. The FBI had looked for him, briefly. But with the investigation confirming his evidence, with the reforms being implemented, the appetite for prosecuting him had faded. Eventually they'd stopped looking. decided he was more useful as a ghost than as a prisoner. Stone typed back, "You too, and thank you for everything." She didn't expect a response. Didn't get one. Marcus had said what he needed to say. Now he was gone. Maybe for good. Maybe just until the next time someone needed to shake up a system that had forgotten why it existed in the first place. A knock at her door. Stone looked up. A young man stood there, mid-20s, wearing civilian clothes but carrying himself like military, something in the posture, the alertness, the way his eyes catalogued the room before settling on her. "Ms. Stone, I'm Derek Hayes, former lieutenant. I heard you were hiring." Stone smiled, first real smile in 6 months. "You heard right, come in." Hayes entered, sat when she gestured. "I left the military 3 months ago. Honorable discharge. Got tired of the politics, the bureaucracy, the feeling that I was wasting my time pushing papers instead of helping people." "And you think working for a veteran services nonprofit is better?" "I think working with someone who actually gives a damn about veterans is better than working for a system that sees them as statistics." Stone studied him. Same Hayes who'd flown co-pilot during the longest day of her life. Same Hayes who'd stood by her during the court-martial. Same Hayes who'd testified on her behalf even when it cost him career advancement. He'd been promoted to captain afterward, quietly. The military's way of saying thanks for not making waves, but he'd turned it down, resigned, walked away on his own terms. "Why me? Why this organization? You could work anywhere." "Because 6 months ago you taught me something. That doing the right thing matters more than doing the easy thing. That loyalty means standing with people even when it costs you. That service isn't about following orders. It's about protecting those who can't protect themselves." He leaned forward. "I want to keep learning those lessons, and you're the best teacher I've ever had." Stone felt something warm spread through her chest. Not redemption. That was still years away if it ever came at all. But purpose, direction, the sense that maybe, just maybe, she was exactly where she was supposed to be. "All right, Captain Hayes, or I guess just Hayes now. You're hired, welcome to the team." They shook hands. Two former soldiers. Two people who'd chosen conscience over career. Two survivors of a system that broke them and somehow, impossibly, made them stronger in the breaking. Outside the window, Colorado afternoon sun painted the mountains gold. Somewhere out there, 480 veterans of Operation Sentinel Shield were living their lives, building careers, raising families, remembering the day their training exercise almost became their last day, remembering the captain who'd chosen to save them even when it cost everything. And somewhere else, in a place Stone couldn't name and didn't need to know, Marcus Holt was watching the sunset. Free, alive, carrying ghosts but no longer haunted by them, knowing that the woman he'd taught and lost and found again had finally become the soldier he'd always believed she could be. The debt from Fallujah wasn't paid, could never be paid. 10 lives lost couldn't be restored. 8 years stolen couldn't be returned. But the lesson had been learned, the choice had been made right, and the cycle, finally, mercifully, had been broken. Stone turned away from the window, back to her desk, back to work, back to the quiet service of helping others find their way home. It wasn't glory, wasn't medals, wasn't the career she trained for. But it was enough. And for the first time in 8 years, Captain Alexis Stone, formerly of the United States Army, formerly of the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, formerly of 100 missions she couldn't talk about and 1 mission she couldn't forget, smiled and meant it. The Guardian had found her way home. And the watch continued. This story hit me hard while writing it. Captain Stone's choice, destroying her career to save 480 lives, reminds me why I started this channel. In my 30 years covering military stories, I've learned that the hardest decisions happen when duty and conscience collide. Here's my question for you. Have you ever had to choose between following orders and doing what you knew was right? What would you have done in Stone's position? Drop your thoughts below. And if this story moved you, there's more where this came from. Hit that subscribe button. These stories need to be told. Semper Fi, United States.